Okay, so we're going to do more trigonometric equations today. These ones are a little more complicated. So, for instance, something, like 2 cosine squared x plus cosine x minus 1 equals 0, where x is, or excuse me, 0 less than or equal to x less than 2 pi. So if you think about it like this, well, this looks similar to a quadratic equation, right? In the form of, ax squared plus bx plus c plus 0. So what we could do here is do a substitution. So for example, I could just say, let u equal cosine x. Well, that means that u squared is going to be cosine squared x. So now I want to substitute it in. Now I want to substitute these values into the equation. So 2 u squared plus u minus 1 equals 0. So now it's a quadratic equation. So using some algebra, the AC method. This is my A, this is my C. So 2 times -1 is -2. So I have to find two numbers that multiply -2 and add up to 1. Well, 2 and -1, because 2 times -1 is -2, and 2 minus 1 is 1. So now write it out. I have 2u squared plus 2u minus u minus 1 equals 0. So by doing factoring by grouping, we're going to get 2u, u plus 1. And then here, I can factor out -1, making it u plus 1. So that gives me 2u minus 1 and u plus 1 equals 0. So that means, solving for both equations, u is going to equal 1/2 and -1. But yes, we solved for u, but remember, we're trying to find for cosine. So now we got to plug back in what our u is. Again, u is cosine x. So then that's going to be cosine of x equals 1/2, and cosine x equals -1. So where does cosine equal 1/2? Well, I have to know the reference angle. Well, cosine equals 1/2 at pi over 3, right? Plus 2 pi n, where again, this is very important because the 2 pi, well, that's the period of cosine x for a cosine x function for that. And then n, once again, is an integer. And I have to again look at the quadrants, right? Because okay, yeah, that's one of them, but then where else is cosine positive? Well, again, all students take calculus. So we did the first quadrant. Now we have this one. So again, this value is going to be 2 pi minus pi over 3, which will give me 5/3 pi plus 2 pi n, where n is any integer. Now for this one here, cosine of x equals -1. Well, since it's less, so since the interval is from 0 less than 2 pi, Or is it equal? Where does cosine equal -1? Well, not here, but right there. That is the only value where cosine is going to equal -1, where such that it's from 0 less than 2 pi. So this is pi. So then x, we already know it's just pi. Or if we wanted to, we could just put 2 pi n plus pi. So what we want to do is make a table for n versus x, right? Or x versus n, rather. Or whatever. So, okay, let's try values. So if n is 0, for this equation, I get pi over 3. This one, I get 5/3 pi. And this equation, I get pi. So now we have to see, well, what if it's 1? Well, if n is 1, see, I get 2 pi plus pi over 3. That's bigger than 2 pi. And if I plug in 1 here, well, once again, I get 2 pi plus 5/3 pi. That's bigger than 2 pi. Plug in 1 here, you get 2 pi plus pi is 3 pi. That's too big. So there's none for this. Now, if you try a negative number, that'd be like, say, -1. That'd be -2 pi plus pi over 3. Well, -2 pi plus pi over 3, we already know that's going to be a negative number. That's less than 0. Same goes for here. And here, if I plug in -1, I get -2 pi plus pi is negative pi. So that's doesn't work either. So therefore, the solution to this quadratic type trigonometric equation is pi over 3 pi and 5/3 pi. Now, another type of equation that you'll come across is, something of the sort of tangent of x sine squared x equals 3 tangent x, where we have the condition 0 less than equal to x less than 2 pi. So this type of equation, well, notice how we have tangent on both sides. We have the term tangent sine squared x, and then this term 3 tan x. So this is something you definitely do not want to do. And that is, you don't ever want to cancel out any trig terms. So for instance, like, you don't want to divide by tangent of x to both sides, because what happens is you wind up eliminating some solutions from the equation. We don't want that, obviously. We want to get all possible solutions. So what I can do is I can put everything to one side such that it equals 0. Well, the best thing to do is subtract 3 tangent x from both sides. So that's going to give me tangent of x sine squared x minus 3 tan x equals 0. Okay, so I have this. Well, what can I do now? Well, again, our good old friend algebra. Algebra is the bread and butter of mathematics. It's the foundation for high-level mathematics. So we can factor. Well, what can we factor out? A tangent. They both have tangent x in common. So factor out tangent x, and that's going to give you tangent x, and then in parentheses, sine squared of x minus 3 equals 0. So now I have tangent of x equals 0, and sine squared x minus 3 equals 0. So for this, well, where does tangent equal 0? Again, reference angles, or the four quadrants. All students take calculus. So where does tangent equal 0? Well, remember, tangent is, another way to look at it is sine x over cosine x. So where does sine equal 0? Here and here. So that means, well, that x, we know that tangent of 0 is 0, and tangent of pi is 0, right? So 0 and pi. So there's nothing else because less than 2 pi. Bam. It's only two solutions. Now, if I look at this part, sine squared of x minus 3 equals 0. Okay. Well, I want to solve for sine. First things first, add 3 to both sides. You get sine squared x equals 3. Take the square root of both sides. And you get sine of x equals plus or minus the square root of 3. Or I could write it as sine of x equals radical 3. And sine of x equals negative radical 3. Now, for this one, we have to look at, okay, sine of what value gives me square root of 3? Now, this is a little bit tricky, and this is where you have to really remember the range of sine functions here, because remember, sine always lies, the range of sine is always from -1 to 1. So that means, since this is square root of 3, square root of 3 is greater than 1. It's like 1.71 something ... which is clearly greater than 1. Similarly, with negative square root of 3, this is less than -1, because it would be -1.7 ... or so on. So this is less than -1, and this is bigger than 1. That means that there is no solutions here. So therefore, the solution to this equation is x equals 0 and pi. And okay, that will do it for today. I hope this video helps, and have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.